Well, hello there, and welcome to Sim.bc, where I am joining you at about exactly at 10 past 1 in the morning. I was gonna say evening, but that's not technically correct, is it? It's 10 past 1 a.m. It's in that bloody morning, mates, and I'm joining you with a fresh cup of green, fresh cup of green tea in order to show off that, supporting environment. It's a good message, it's a good mindset now, isn't it? And I'm gonna join you here today with a topic that is darker than an eclipse during nighttime. Yeah? Think about that for a while. Not too hot for once. I like it. I would like to, though, begin with saying sorry a bit for yesterday's video on behalf of everyone here at Sim.bc production, which is just me though. And I'm not saying like sorry for, sorry that you had to see it and sorry for humanity that you had to experience this. No, what I'm mostly saying is that yesterday's song was all about me trying out some range, trying out my own range as a singer. Do I have some range? Spoiler alert, I ain't got no range. Yeah, which means that some of the notes didn't quite hit the mark that they were supposed to. And after listening to it about 15 times now, I know that you are the worst critic to yourself now, aren't you? You're the worst person to critique yourself because you will critique yourself way too hard, or at least most people will, right? And I'm included, especially when it comes to singing. It's something that I believe that I'm not as good as I would like to be, which means that, after 15 listens, I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. Without any further ado, though, let's get into today's very, very dark topic. Now, I don't really mean for and hope that it will get dark, but it has a real risk of getting quite dark. So, let me establish some pretext, right? I have quite recently, been talking about how unfortunate it is that I'm not getting the intellectual stimulants. No, not really what I mean. But that I don't get the opportunity to talk to people about just random things and applying different schools of thoughts for one particular topic to another, trying to apply the same mindset in different directions. But on my way home today, oh boy, did I go down a dark lane. Not necessarily that I did, but the conversation kind of did. So, it was me and my mate, and I was talking about how highly developed we are. We were obviously on the subject. I didn't just go in and say, in order to fill the silence here, what I'm going to talk about? We are kind of highly evolved. No, but I was talking and trying to make the point that human people, people overall, society as we live in, is kind of dysfunctional, kind of desynchronized with the amount of how developed we are as primates and how much society has been developed in the digital age. Something that I've been talking about previously on this channel. And he kind of agreed. And I was going on and on and on about, we're really developed, and most people don't think about that. We're really good. We're really highly developed primates, or we're highly developed of what God gave us, of however you want to watch it, however you're going to look at it. If you can just appreciate how highly developed we really are. But then I also took up some shortcomings of us that, the things that I've been discussing previously. And he took up this interesting thing that I haven't been thinking about at all, actually. He said, but mate, isn't it kind of tragic and interesting in a way that people are so eager to, let's say, trade something for something else? And I'm just like, mate, that's the economy. I like the economy, the free market. And he was like, okay, but let me rephrase that so that I get my point across. Isn't it interesting and sort of disturbing how eager and trigger-friendly we are as people, or as society for that matter, to sacrifice something in order to not need to sacrifice something else? Now this blew my mind, if I'm totally honest with you. Not directly, because I didn't really get it. And I'm of the understanding that it's not as easy to get. So let me explain what he meant. He basically meant that most people are very happy to trade something, yeah, to say that, or sacrifice something, I'd say, to sacrifice, for instance, this bottle in order to not sacrifice this one. So that means if there comes people to my house that says, you know, we're gonna take some shit from you, I would rather you take this and that you take that. Pretty simple stuff. We're at the bare bones of it. If your house is on fire and you need to run in and save something, you rather sacrifice this in the fire in order to save this. It's all about the opportunity cost of how you can run in, how you deal with your time, how you deal with, you know, your existing resources, how other people perceive them, what the social perception is, what the fundamentals of how you actually prioritize things are. Yeah, we're at the bare bones basics of what he really meant with this. Obviously, he took it to another level. And he quickly went into war. Not with me, not figuratively, right? Just talking about war. Because if you think about it, the essence, and obviously I'm not a professor in this, I'm not an expert, neither was he, yeah? Some context where it needs to be, right? Establishing it, no matter if you want it or not, it's better than the shock value topic, right? I am not an expert on this, and neither was he. But we were kind of discussing and getting into the perception and the idea that people are so trigger friendly and so happy to sacrifice something in order to not be able to sacrifice something else, or sacrifice themselves for something, that war tends to happen. Or at least conflicts that then scale up and become, well, out of proportion. And you might be sitting there, as I was in the beginning, and be like, hold on a minute. Sacrifice something for something else? Sacrifice something for something else? How do we really get some real conflict in such a world? Because if you think about it, right? If I need to make the choice to sacrifice something instead of something else, that means that someone already needs to make the move to go against me, so that I need to sacrifice said thing. Now, isn't that right? And you're completely right, or at least I was of the mindset that you were. And yet again, I might change my mind tomorrow, right? This is no definitive science. It's just a discussion that you please join in the comment section below if you agree or if you disagree of what I'm about to say, what we kind of got down to. Not that I necessarily agree with it, just that there is a train of thought that I can see. Not that I necessarily, yet again, agree with, but there is a train of thought. Now, the most obvious point that he put forward, according to him, was that, well, sometimes you need to, for instance, in order to not be able to sacrifice face, let's say, face in the sense of, you know, the cultural phenomenon of that I don't want to lose face in front of all these people. I don't want to lose face in politics. I don't want to lose face. Basically, you don't want to shame yourself. In order to not lose face in one situation, you much rather, right, sacrifice all the people that you have to your disposal, so that you don't have to sacrifice your own, you know, your face, figuratively, not literally. And he was thinking about, you know, going back hundreds of years and thousands of years, there were people who had slaves or just servants beneath them, or had an entire army. And then there came something up in in politics, in a political context, where someone perhaps said, oh, you know, you can't even fight those barbarians over there. And in order to not lose face as a general, and I know, this is far-fetched, instead of losing face as a general, he or she would probably it feels bad to say, but it was probably a very patriotic world that we lived in, especially in Europe, right, a couple of thousand years ago. But then this general would probably, yeah, most likely, instead, I'm saying most likely, probably, in the case of this argument, in the case for the argument's sake, yeah, that's how you say it, would probably be like, you know what, instead of sacrificing face here, I would rather sacrifice my army, go fight those barbarians and shut you up. Yep, far-fetched. And this is probably not only something that happened, you know, in ancient Greece, in ancient Egypt, in ancient Rome, in ancient France, in ancient Britain, in ancient Scandinavia, in ancient China, or probably was it? Because it was a lot about keeping face and keeping political status. Why? Well, because if you think about it, and we kind of branched out here for a while, if you think about it, the amounts of information transmission that were held in those eras wasn't as good as it was today. So people were probably very inclined to think about higher powers, right? Higher inclined powers, highly established powers. And that meant that losing face maybe not only meant you losing face in that situation, but also losing some face with the other people of the crowd, so that people thought that you were ashamed in your position, and then people of the country wouldn't listen to you as much because the amount of slow transportation, it doesn't matter if it was a one-time thing or a two-time thing or a 100-time thing, people will probably still be looking at you and being like, oh, he's a bit of a twat now, isn't he? And an ashamed one of that. Which means gives a rather stronger incentive to actually follow through and kind of prove themselves, indeed sacrificing something to keep something else. Rather, in this case, the other way around. Keeping face while sacrificing half of the army to prove a point, and probably gain some land in in the process, let's say. Which probably wasn't bad either. And then we spun out of control, and we were talking about the idea that trade probably were based a lot on war in the olden days. Someone needed to make swords, someone needed to make the armor, someone needed to have the horses, and all of these things were, a lot of the economy were probably based and bred on war and established and maintaining an army, and to some degree we decided in our very expert opinion that that's probably the case today, that a lot of weapon manufacturers stands for a lot of import and export of all countries of the world, and a huge part of the economy is probably made up of questionable goods. If we think about peace, probably very weird decisions that are made in terms of goods. And we were basically, saying that thousands of years ago people were acting in this way because, trying to keep face, slow means of transportation, a lot of trade going on, kind of benefited everyone. So sacrifice a bit of an army, go to war, have that, and then you be like, saved face, or everybody died. Unfortunate, but the winners write history, am I right? So most likely all of the tales that we find will be glorious ones. So he spun out of control there, and he basically tried to persuade to me that, yeah, we might be highly evolved beings, but then can you explain why there's war? And honestly, I couldn't. The closest thing I came to explaining war, quote unquote explaining war, was that, it's all a big conspiracy, with all the amount of transmission of information, we should not, we should be able to control all conflicts. And then I thought, if we're able to control all conflicts, then maybe we're just dumping different resources into a war zone, because that's the one and only true way of actually getting rid of resources that are of abundancy, because you can just blow them up and wage war with them, which in turn means that you can establish a very skewed supply-demand relationship and maintain profits. Woohoo! As a country, maybe that is the case, probably not, maybe yes, who knows, right? That's also a problem, who really knows, which also hits home to the idea that maybe information isn't as easily transferable as we think today, even though we are in a very digitalized age with the internet. Whilst he was trying to make the case, yeah, we're probably not that developed, because then we wouldn't have war, and still this idea that we're so happy to sacrifice something to either gain something else or be able to not sacrifice something else. It was just such a I was gonna say wonderful, but wondrous, such a abstract idea that simultaneously had so much ground all of a sudden when he was talking about it. Now, I might not have made the best of cases discussing this point. I understand that. So if you thought this was a bit abstract, the entire idea of, not sacrificing this in order to sacrifice that, or sacrificing this in order to not sacrifice that, or however you want to say it, then please leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will try to explain it further, but I have a feeling I might not do a better job there. It's not something, yet again, that I'm an expert or very heavily put into. It's just that it's one of those conversations that I kind of miss from university, and today I actually got to have one of them, and it was inspiring to be thinking about the human evolution, so to say, as I'm saying, is so highly evolved, as being so heavily criticized in one of the biggest areas that I happen to just look away from, you know? War. And this sacrifice idea. There were many other branches that we branched out with and discussed, the tribal idea of society and how that came about, and religion and stuff. But it's probably a controversial video as it is, and bringing in religion never helps with that, does it? Neither does politics and conspiracy, but here we are anyway. Yeah, but it was a rather interesting point. He also kind of took up, and I might as well throw it in since I have a bit of time left, also threw in the idea that in order to unite all of society and all of humanity, we need to have one common goal or one common enemy, and that's kind of the idea as well, that as long as we don't, we'd rather sacrifice some of our men to gain something, yeah? Or some of our women, for that matter, you know? Shouldn't be racist. I mean sexist. You can sacrifice whoever you want of any gender, really, in this form of an army in order to gain some resources and gain some land. And that's just human behavior and human nature. And while thinking about it for a while, it probably is. It's unfortunate, but it's probably true. But that's just one other thing to sort of train yourself away from. To not be as trigger friendly about sacrificing and gaining stuff from that. You know, basically the entire idea and the philosophy of Buddhism, as I understand it, right? Being able to detach yourself from materialistic gains and other gains for that matter. I might be entirely wrong, so don't take that as a given and research yourself. You know, source critique, apply that source critique. Anyway, mates, have a nice one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.